Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show. Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin Clark.
Updates in the ongoing WNBA CBA negotiations, and there is a brand new wrinkle to the storyline as it's been reported that there is a Saudi-backed basketball league that will be kicking off next season, and this could truly change everything.
Hey, is this enough to entice Caitlin Clark? $20 million deal, 30, 40, $50 million deal.
Welcome back to WNBA Core. Today I am bringing you another massive, game-changing story, and I know you are going to find this fascinating. Make sure you stick with me all the way through to the end because we are going to break down every critical detail and all the major reactions surrounding this situation. Without wasting a single second, let's jump straight into today's deep dive. We might be standing on the brink of a complete collapse of everything we thought we understood about the hierarchy of professional sports. For months now, the dominant narrative surrounding women's basketball has been focused on the cold treatment, hostile commentary, and deep-seated jealousy directed toward Caitlin Clark. But while WNBA veterans were preoccupied with trying to physically intimidate the superstar rookie, the deepest financial pockets on the planet were quietly watching from the background. If you appreciate this content, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Believe it or not, more than 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. It's free and only takes a second, but it means the world to us. So, did you subscribe already? Great! Thank you so much for your support. Now, back to the video. We are not talking about a routine shoe endorsement here. We aren't even talking about a standard maximum contract extension. We are looking at a $1 billion structural disruption, a massive development that Stephen A. Smith recently confirmed live on national television. At this point, these reports are far more than just random chatter on social media. Credible rumors indicate that a high-stakes, hostile takeover of women's professional basketball is actively being structured by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. Even more surprisingly, insiders report that they have identified two primary targets to lead this project, Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham. Pairing the most prolific shooter of a generation with one of the league's most charismatic and marketable stars would build an unstoppable breakaway product, one that the WNBA simply lacks the financial muscle to resist. Stephen A. Smith issued a direct warning to the WNBA front office. He cautioned league executives that if they failed to protect and value their ultimate prized asset, a deep-pocketed outsider would step in and buy out the entire ecosystem. Now, it appears that multi-billion-dollar check is being written. To understand why the WNBA leadership is terrified of this billion-dollar development, you only need to examine who is delivering the message. When it comes to addressing the overt mistreatment of Caitlin Clark, Stephen A. Smith has consistently been the most outspoken analyst in mainstream media. While other pundits tried to play it safe by labeling the cheap shots and hostility as standard competitive fire, Smith loudly called it out for what it was, blatant jealousy. He blasted the league on live TV for mishandling the greatest commercial gift the sport had ever received, pointing directly to the indignity of commercial flights, the physical hit from Chindy Carter, and her controversial exclusion from the Olympic roster. However, his most recent statements have shifted from simple critique into a far more dangerous prediction. Smith declared that the open market will always correct itself. He argued that an outdated system paying a generational phenomenon roughly $76,000 annually, when her actual market value sits in the hundreds of millions, cannot expect to hold on to her forever. Smith noted that the WNBA's old guard believed they could force Clark to keep her head down and wait her turn, completely ignoring the fact that modern superstars hold unprecedented personal leverage. Smith's confirmation of these massive investment talks proves one fundamental truth: brand loyalty completely vanishes when disrespect becomes the norm. In short, his message to the league is simple: I warned you. You treated her like an enemy, and now she is positioned to become your biggest rival. This is precisely where the argument for traditional league loyalty completely breaks down. When you examine the actual numbers, the reality becomes undeniable. The WNBA operates under a rigid, highly restrictive salary cap. Caitlin Clark signed a standard 4-year rookie deal worth approximately $338,000, which breaks down to just around $76,000 in her first season. To put that figure into perspective, plenty of bench players in the NBA earn that exact amount in less than a single week. For decades, the WNBA leadership has shielded itself behind the same classic excuse: the league simply doesn't generate enough revenue, citing 27 consecutive years of financial losses. The irony, of course, is that Caitlin Clark effectively solved that long-standing revenue problem inside of 3 months. Ever since her arrival, ticket sales have shattered records, television ratings have hit heights unseen in decades, and merchandise sales have skyrocketed across the globe. She is single-handedly generating tens of millions of dollars for the collective property. In return, she receives a base wage that barely covers standard living expenses in a major metropolitan city. That stark financial reality makes it impossible to brush off these Saudi investment rumors. The Saudi Public Investment Fund operates in the realm of billions, not thousands. When their executives look at a global asset like Clark, they don't see a rookie who needs to sit quietly and pay her dues, they see a wildly undervalued cultural powerhouse. If the reports of a $1 billion injection into a brand new league or global tournament structure prove true, the money offered to Clark wouldn't just be a contract, it would be a generational empire. We are looking at an upfront payout that could easily dwarf the combined lifetime career earnings of every current WNBA player put together. When you place a multi-million-dollar check directly next to a $76,000 WNBA contract, there is no real debate to be had. Yet, this isn't merely about making one star athlete unimaginably wealthy. It is a calculated, strategic play within global sports entertainment. We have already seen this exact scenario unfold, and it fundamentally rewritten the rules of professional athletics forever. Think back to the rise of LIV golf. For generations, the PGA Tour held an absolute monopoly over professional golf. They controlled the schedule, dictated the player pay, and managed the entire ecosystem. Then, the Saudi fund entered the picture. They didn't bother negotiating with the PGA Tour, they simply bought the top talent outright. They offered players like Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson guaranteed paychecks in excess of $100 million just to sign on the line. The traditional sports media slammed the move, labeling it greed and accusing players of participating in sports washing. But guess what happened? Once enough top-tier talent took the cash, the PGA Tour was ultimately forced to abandon its position, negotiate, and pursue a merger with the very entity they had tried to fight. Industry insiders now believe women's basketball is being subjected to that exact same strategic playbook. The vulnerabilities in the WNBA are obvious, the core talent is severely underpaid, key superstars are frustrated with league management, and commercial travel conditions have been a major point of contention for years. The environment is custom-made for a hostile takeover. By making a direct play for Caitlin Clark, the Saudi backers are targeting the heart and soul of the entire women's game. Without her, the WNBA risks slipping back into relative media obscurity. With her, a competing league instantly becomes a dominant force in modern sports. However, a sustainable sports property cannot rely on a single athlete alone, it requires genuine rivalries, diverse appeal, and a strong supporting cast. That is precisely why Sophie Cunningham's name is so prominent in these discussions. Why select her over established stars like Aya Wilson or Breanna Stewart? The answer comes down to pure marketability and audience demographics. Sophie Cunningham has cultivated a massive, highly engaged personal fanbase built on a foundation of intense, physical play and sharp personal branding. She possesses an undeniable charisma that corporate sponsors crave, and she understands how to navigate digital media culture exceptionally well. There is a specific reason television cameras constantly highlight her on the sidelines. Reports suggest the vision for this proposed breakaway venture is to assemble a curated lineup of globally recognizable, highly engaging personalities. Pairing Cunningham with Clark creates a compelling dynamic. You get the tough, outspoken, non-nonsense enforcer in Cunningham alongside the generational scoring phenom in Clark. Together, they represent an ideal marketing duo to launch a high-profile sports property. Stephen A. Smith has repeatedly pointed out that the sports business relies heavily on figures who can move the needle at the box office. Box office receipts are driven by athletes who generate passionate engagement, and both Clark and Cunningham do exactly that. We also have to evaluate why Clark would even consider walking away from the legacy league she dreamed of joining as a child. Turning down a $1 billion alternative would be far easier if the WNBA had warmly embraced her arrival. Instead, from the second she set foot on a professional court, it felt like open season. During the Final Four broadcast, WNBA legend Diana Taurasi ominously warned that reality was coming for the rookie, setting a tone that felt more like resentment than welcoming mentorship. That subtext immediately translated onto the court. Fans watched as Clark was full court pressed relentlessly, physically battered in the paint, and repeatedly knocked to the hardwood while officials often let play continue. The infamous shoulder check by Chindi Carter wasn't standard basketball, it was a direct message. That specific incident prompted Stephen A. Smith to explode on air, demanding to know where Clark's teammates were and why league officials weren't protecting their most valuable commercial asset. The overarching story became crystal clear: the WNBA's established veteran core had no interest in sharing the spotlight, they wanted to dim her light entirely. In such a cold environment, a lucrative exit strategy becomes extremely appealing. If an athlete has the option to step into an environment where she is compensated 50 times more, treated like royalty, and properly protected, why remain in a system where peers actively resent your individual success? It is worth remembering that this isn't the first time alternative leagues have attempted to lure Clark away. Readers will recall Ice Cube's high-profile $5 million offer for her to join the Big Three League for just 8 games. That single offer exceeded what she will earn over the course of her entire 4-year WNBA contract. At the time, she declined, choosing instead to focus on winning at the highest level of traditional women's basketball. But that decision was made before months of relentless physical punishment, minimal official protection, and constant off-court drama. Now, the landscape has shifted, and the alleged Saudi proposal makes Ice Cube's $5 million offer look like small change. The key difference here is structural. This isn't just a side gig or a minor summer exhibition. It represents a full-fledged alternative league featuring reduced game loads, private luxury travel, non-existent salary caps, and global visibility. It directly addresses every major complaint WNBA players have voiced for years. Ice Cube proved that Clark's market value was astronomical. The Saudi fund has the capital to make that value permanent. Now let's look at this scenario from the perspective of WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert. Front office leadership is facing a nightmare scenario if these reports materialize. The WNBA is currently finalizing massive, long-term media rights negotiations, seeking billions of dollars from major networks including Disney, Amazon, and NBC. The entire pitch behind those historic negotiations rests on the explosive growth driven by the Caitlin Clark effect. League executives are presenting record-breaking viewership charts to justify those premium rights fees. However, that immense bargaining leverage disappears overnight if Clark signals a move to an independent breakaway entity. Major networks are not proposing multi-billion-dollar investments for the WNBA baseline product alone, they are investing in the massive audience Clark draws. If she exits, those lucrative television deals shrink dramatically. And if those broadcasting deals collapse, the eventual revenue sharing meant to elevate salaries for the very veterans who targeted her vanishes as well. It is the ultimate form of commercial irony. By attempting to suppress the rising star who expanded the financial pie, the old guard may end up costing themselves their own future paychecks. As Stephen A. Smith aptly noted, you cannot expect to feast if you insist on biting the hand that feeds you. Naturally, whenever the Saudi Public Investment Fund enters sports discussions, heavy moral criticism follows. We saw this exact debate with LIV Golf, and we saw it when global soccer icons like Cristiano Ronaldo signed in the Saudi Pro League. Outspoken critics will highlight human rights issues and argue against state-funded sports investments. However, as Stephen A. Smith frequently observes, moral outrage rarely dictates business decisions in professional athletics. Few sports figures hesitated when NBA players signed massive contracts linked to Chinese market expansion, and the initial wave of criticism surrounding LIV Golf faded into standard sports coverage within months. For female athletes who have endured systemic underpayment for decades, that financial decision is even more impactful. When a player's primary domestic league caps her earning potential at $70,000, it is hard to fault her for considering a life-changing, multi-million-dollar alternative. While internet commentary may debate the ethics, history proves that sports fans ultimately tune in for elite talent. If Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham are playing high-level basketball, audiences will follow them regardless of the platform. Public outrage is temporary, generational wealth is permanent. Let me break down the strategic fit of the Sophie Cunningham connection even further. Reports indicate that this proposed league would abandon the traditional, city-based franchise format used by the WNBA in favor of a dynamic, global tour model similar to tennis or formula racing. Imagine a scenario where marquee stars like Clark, Cunningham, and other top-tier talent compete in high-stakes showcase events across major international markets like London, Tokyo, Dubai, and New York. This structure completely cuts out low viewership regular season games, turning every single event into a massive media showcase. Bringing Cunningham into the mix guarantees strong commercial and social media engagement. Together, Cunningham and Clark represent a stylish, confident, and highly skilled modern era of women's hoops that appeals directly to casual sports fans. This tour-style model poses an existential threat to traditional leagues because the millions of casual fans who entered the sport specifically for Clark will seamlessly transition wherever she goes. The WNBA risks being relegated to a developmental feeder league for a far more lucrative international circuit. Perhaps the most telling aspect of this entire situation is the complete silence from all key parties. In the sports world, when an absurd or fabricated story surfaces, agents and PR teams move quickly to issue firm denials to protect their clients. Yet, in this case, there has been no denial from Caitlin Clark's camp. Sophie Cunningham's representatives have remained completely quiet. Rather than dampening the speculation, analysts like Wnba Erupts continue to emphasize the validity of these market dynamics. In professional sports, absolute silence usually indicates active negotiations behind closed doors. While contracts and official announcements cannot be finalized mid-season, the lack of a formal denial speaks volumes. These camps are either weighing historic financial terms or using the threat of a breakaway league as massive leverage against the WNBA front office. When you factor in the physical toll of an exhausting WNBA season, the appeal of private travel, lighter schedules, and unmatched financial backing becomes extraordinarily compelling. We are standing at the threshold of what could be the most significant structural shift in the history of women's sports. As Wnba Erupts clearly detailed, instead of embracing a transformative era, WNBA leadership allowed internal jealousy and poor player management to alienate the very figure driving their financial renaissance. The reported $1 billion Saudi initiative featuring Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham represents far more than just a rival contract offer, it is an absolute industry revolution. It sends a clear message across the entire sports landscape: if established traditional systems refuse to pay elite female athletes what they are truly worth, outside capital will step in and do it for them. The era of Clark and Cunningham in WNBA uniforms may be far closer to its conclusion than anyone imagined. If they ultimately walk away, the WNBA leadership will have no one to blame but themselves. Now I want to hear from all of you. If Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham make the leap to a breakaway global league, will you stick with the WNBA, or will you follow the stars to the new platform? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you for tuning into WNBA Core. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update on this unfolding story. We will see you in the next video.